In 1936, he wrote a book called The General Theory of Employment, Interest, and Money. Think about when 1936 was, right in the middle of the Depression. And what he said was, a lot of people say, he said, capitalism's great. He loved capitalism. He made his money trading currencies. I mean, he got rich on capitalism. He loved capitalism. But he said, capitalism will sometimes get off the track. And it can get itself in such a funk that even if interest rates go to zero, it just can't restart itself fast enough. Anybody know what the federal funds rate is in this country right now? It's 0. Are we restarting ourselves very fast? No. Okay? And he says, when you get in that situation, government has to get it started again. And he even went so far as to say, the best thing to do is build infrastructure. But if you can't get your act together and do that, have one group of people bury money in jars and pay another group to go dig it up. He said, just do something to get some, to get some activity going. He said, do something. After that, not long after that, people started calling any excuse for the government to spend money, they started calling Keynesianism. He got a bad name because he was the whipping boy for every bad government program for years. So much so that even by 1945, before he died, he wrote a book. He wrote an article, one of his last articles, and the title of it was, I'm Not a Keynesian. Because that's not what he said. He just said, in these times, this is what you have to do. He even said, then when you get on your feet again, you need to pay off some of that debt. So he became kind of a whipping boy, particularly in the Reagan era. He was very popular in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. During the Reagan era, he kind of became the whipping boy for everything, and then he was just kind of forgotten. But in 1936, we were probably about as close to socialism as you would ever get because we had 25% unemployment. Okay? What's likely to lead to an uprising and moving to that kind of system? An uprising of the workers like Karl Marx talked about is massive unemployment. The single reason it didn't was because of the intellectual capacity of one man. So he wasn't a socialist. He was the one who literally saved capitalism at that moment because of just the sheer force he had and his influence on Roosevelt and Churchill and some others that caused him to start doing some things that helped us get out of that mess. And so that's where we are today. We're having to do some things in government we wouldn't normally do. It's not socialism. It's just where we are. And at the time, people said to him, well, won't the private sector take care of this? Won't markets work? And he said, in the long run, markets will work. Take care of it. He said, also, in the long run, we're all dead. Okay? And what's happened in the last 70 years is the long run's gotten a lot shorter. I mean, we cannot afford for credit markets to be shut down for a week right now, much less 6 months or something. So, I mean, we had to act quickly. We had to do these things. It's not socialism unless we screw up and don't get out of it when we need to down the road. Right now, it's doing what you have to do with a capitalist system. Because if you get a pure system, you're not going to like the results. Pure markets don't give you the result you like. Because pure markets lead to bad things. We had pretty much a purely competitive system in this country from the end of the Civil War until the early 1900s, what Mark Twain called the Gilded Age. And we ended up with one car company, one railroad, one steamship company, a couple of banks that ran the whole financial system, J.P. Morgan and his gang, and the robber barons. Because if you have forget about the economy for a minute. If you have competition, what's the end result of competition? What? Somebody wins. Yeah, you end up with one. Last season, play the Super Bowl, you got one champion. End of the baseball season, World Series, one champion. End of the college football season, that's a whole other story. But anyway, and so competition by its very nature leads to one winner, and once you have only one out there, they can take advantage of people. There's no competition anymore, so you have to put sideboards on it. And that's what the thing is. You don't want to restrict it so much it can't do the wonderful things it does, but you have to put sideboards on it, which is effectively what we're doing right now. So it's what we're doing has to be done. Now it's not free. As I say, we're not doing it exactly right. There's all kinds of legitimate debates to be had about that, and there's a day of reckoning. And we're borrowing $1 trillion here. If you borrow $1 trillion, at some point down the road, you don't necessarily have to pay it back, because the difference in us and governments is it's illegal for us to print money, but you do have to pay interest on it. It's going to be inflationary. It's going to have some consequences down the road, and you have to weigh those consequences against letting the system collapse. And when you weigh those consequences, it's not even close. So this is not a free lunch. There is a day of reckoning down the road, but we literally had no choice but to go through this process and go through what we're going through right now. And so I hope that gives you a little bit of a sense of things. Let me kind of stop there and just take questions and talk about anything y'all want to talk about. And I can't see you, but somebody can get you to the microphone, okay?